Surah Al-Qiyamah is one of the early Meccan surahs. So far we read Surah Al-Hujarat and Surah Al-Fatih. Both late Meccan surahs, Madani surahs, okay? And their themes and subject matter was quite different from what we are encountering here in Surah Al-Qiyamah. They were about the qualities of a believer, social relationships, and about striving in the path of Allah. Okay? But Makkah was a different situation completely. Here it was about knowing and understanding and actually beginning to accept the faith. This was about the stage of acceptance of the faith and strengthening of the faith and consolidating the faith and actually educating people about the bigger picture and the big issues of life. So that's the fundamental. Once you get that right, then you build on that. Okay. So inshallah, we'll encounter that in this surah. The theme is the resurrection, the day of judgment, really. Okay. So Al-Qiyamah, as the name also suggests, it's the day of standing before the Lord to give judgment, really. Standing is, of course, you stand in the dock. You stand in the dock when it's the court.
It's the court,
right? And so the idea of Al-Qiyamah, it's a metaphor for the day of judgment. The judgment is about to take place. The standing in the dock is in many ways a metonym for having to give account of one's life and what they've done or what they haven't done, sins of omission. So we're encountering a new type of surah, different from those two early ones. Let's go straight to the the translation of this, or I'll let you have just a minute to go through the introduction yourself. Read through that yourself. Yeah, you've got a summary of the surah in your mind. What the surah is about. Let's start. I've divided this surah into 4 parts. Okay, the first part is the horrors of the Judgment Day. So, Hafiz Nurisa, would you please kindly read for us the horrors of the Judgment Day?
I swear by the day of judgment, and I swear by the self-critical soul. Do people think we won't put together their disintegrated bones? Of course, we are capable of restoring his fingertips. Yet, they want to rest those in front of them and jokingly ask, when will Judgment Day come? When it comes, eyes will be dazzled, the moon eclipsed, the sun and the moon will appear to be joined together. And man will ask that day, where can we flee to? No, there is no safe place. That day you will be brought before your Lord. People will learn what they achieved and what they failed to do. They will have evidence against themselves, but still offer excuses.
SubhanAllah. There's a qasam here. The oath is taken to emphasize what is to follow, and just to show the enormity of the message and the weightiness of the message. Allah takes the oath. And here, the oath is by the day of judgment, and the second one is by the nafsil lawwama, and nafsil lawwama. So Allah takes the oath of 2 things: of the day of judgment, the day when you stand in the dock, and second is of the nafsul lawwama, the self-criticizing soul. Now this is an interesting concept, or self-critical soul, as I've translated it. Lawwama is to blame yourself, okay? To blame, but the real meaning is someone who is self-assessing, self-evaluating, and self-critical. And I think a lot of the translators normally translate this as the reproaching soul. Okay, I just find that a bit too much of and so it's much easier to use self-critical. And some of the Sufis use this ayah along with وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَعَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ and the other ayah, Al-Abid, that ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. النفس المطمئنة, and this and the nafs ammara as being the three stages of the development of a person's conscience, or the development of, or the purity, the levels of the purity of a heart are measured or divided into these three phases, all right? The three phases of the purity of the heart, and the development of the heart and the mind. And first one is what they call nafs ammara, mentioned in Surah Yusuf. Most likely the words of Zulaykha, when she admits of being driven to her fate and her wrongdoings by the ever commanding soul, by the ever commanding soul. Ever commanding soul very simply means Sirap Swara, the overwhelming, overpowering soul, and overpowering in terms of wrong. It overpowers you. You're in its grips and you're in its control, and so that's the nafs ammara. And this is what is the problem with, I think, in our modern society. Our modern society, at one time it had the shames and sense of shame, and they knew what was right and wrong, and what we didn't need to encourage, what we didn't need to motivate further or incite. We knew that there was no need to incite human sexuality, human greed, human desire for wealth, the human desire for eating. But this society seems to believe that no, we need to encourage people to eat more, as though they won't eat enough to survive. Okay? And of course there's a hidden agenda in that, isn't it? Why does McDonald's advertise? Why does these big firms advertise their food products? They want to actually encourage people to consume more and more of it. And anyway, that's so the point is that the human soul is this conscience I'm talking about here, and the mind, when it is further excited and motivated, it will just go wild, and that's what we are seeing around us. And the free society seems to love that and believes that that is what it should be doing. And I think that's also in many ways, actually, I think it's in some ways encroaching on people's decency and right of privacy, to be honest. But that's the society out there. So that's the nafs ammara. So Zulaykha was in a way saying that my nafs had taken over me. Okay, and so nafs ammara literally means the one that is constantly bombarding you with signals and encouraging you to do anything that comes its way. Okay, indiscriminately. That's what it is. Indiscriminately, and there lies our job, I think. We're talking about social media, and what we've got to be able to train is our young people to discriminate, to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what is evil and what is virtuous. It's up to us now to actually start doing that from the very early on. Okay, and that is something which, one, we don't have time for, we don't have the resources. I'm talking about individuals and parents and families. We're just really not concerned about that sometimes. We let them, things will take care of themselves, and that's very dangerous. Because, we just can't trust the society out there now. Really, you just cannot trust the society out there. It's giving negative messages, or it's giving wrong messages. Yeah, it's giving wrong messages. So we've got a huge challenge. So that's the nafs ammara. And when somebody begins to become like Zulaykha, now that she realized her mistake, that becomes nafs lawwama. This is the self-criticizing, self-evaluating, and then she did tawbah. Okay, so that's the nafs lawwama. This is the self-evaluating, questioning soul. The next one is the stage of satisfied, the nafs that is at rest now, the conscience and the mind that is in control, really. Effectively it's in control. It's called nafs al-mutmainna. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about people on their deathbed, and He says, you know, there is one particular kind of people who are on their deathbed, and they will be told, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutmainna irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya, O satisfied soul, O restful soul, now return to your Lord. He's happy with you, you're happy with Him, and enter into my paradise and amongst my righteous servants. So that's the final stage. There are also 3 other stages which some of the Sufis talk about in between these 3 stages, okay? But I don't think it's necessary here to go into that detail. So Allah swears by the judgment day when you will stand in the dock. Can you see the relationship between why swear by the nafs al-lawwama here? It's obvious, isn't it? Because when you're in front of the judge, you know, things open up. You begin to realize the enormity of if you've done wrong. Isn't that right? That is when you are really, truthfully, you're going to be either reproaching yourself and saying, why did I do this? Eh? How can I answer now? Isn't that right? I hope you can see. You know, you might be asking, why does the Quran mention nafs al-lawwama here with qiyamah? Do you see that? So there is a real relationship of mentioning. Does that make sense? There is a relationship, isn't there? You're standing in the dock and you're lamenting. You are now criticizing yourself. Why did I do this? If I hadn't done, I wouldn't be having to face this. So that's why the nafs al-lawwama there. Then, then there's the question of, you know, do people think that that we won't be put together, that their disintegrated bones won't be put together? I put disintegrated in italics. Why? Anything in italics is my addition, all right? It's not in the Quran. The Quran just says izama, bones. I put disintegrated because it's in the context, okay? And it comes from the Fasir, or Mufassirin will have said somewhere, and I just put that. But to distinguish it from the Quran's words, I put those in italics. So anything you see in italics is actually what? Is mahzufat. These are called ellipses. You know, this is the technical word for it, ellipses or mahzufat. Okay, the omitted words, right? Some of the mufassirin, when they put this, you know, they give evidence for it sometimes. They explain why they think this is the missing word here. But not that Allah has made a mistake now, the Quran makes a mistake. the Quran is, you know, very succinct. It doesn't want to waste our time or anything. It wants to go straight to the, you know, the crux of it. But I'm adding it. I think it just makes it more English-like and more, you know, hopefully better understanding. And remember, I have as a translator, I have a license in adding these sort of things because this is not the Quran. Okay, what I've written there is not the Quran. The Quran is there. All right. So don't worry about that. You know, if people become critical of me, why have you added this or made a mistake? Well, so what, you know? I've done my best in interpreting, all right? And if I made a mistake, we'll correct it if you can help me to correct it. So, but the other is, this is a, okay, there's a, verse number 5, you know, I'm not happy with that translation there, no? I'm actually بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانُ لِيَفْجُرَ أَمَامَهُ actually should be yet what they I've said yet they want to wreck what is in front of them. Really, no, it's really that's one meaning of it, but the real I think
So,
accurate.
We're jumping one verse. We do the fingertips one.
Oh, that is thank you. That's a very fascinating one. So, you know, they say that they won't be brought back to life. These disintegrating bones, how can they be brought back to life? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, we are capable of even restoring his subhanallah. What's special about fingertips? How many different fingertips do we have in the world? 7 billion. Every human being is a unique individual. You know, this is amazing. Allah doesn't say we'll just bring you back to life. No, even your unique signature, your uniqueness, even that we will bring back to life. We're capable of doing that. And of course, again, you know, I mean, I'm sure people knew the fingertips were all different even then, but I don't know whether they could think that, you know, 7 billion people would have different hair. So for us, you know, in modern, it gives you something very unique about the Quran, that, you know, how forward-looking the Quran is, you know. Okay? We could have just said, you know, we can even reconstruct your fingers, and that would be good as well, you know. Reconstructing fingers is a very big problem for surgeons, isn't it? It's one of the most complicated things, isn't it? You still can't do it. Dr. Bukhari is a surgeon, training to be a surgeon, and it's true, isn't it? You still haven't, and it's going to be a huge challenge to be able to put fingers back. Not invent them, but to just sew them back, isn't it? Eh?
It's really complicated.
Subhanallah. And Allah says, you know, we're going to even do your fingertips. Subhanallah.
Doesn't this that?
Yeah.
I mean, well, so just, well, new technology is picking up on it. The fact that, you know, your phones, you cannot unlock your phones until you use your fingertips, right?
Yes.
Majority number one, and number two, it's more than 7 billion. 7 billion is what we are right now on the earth.
Yes.
And how about all the generations gone and yet to come? That's manifold.
Yes. Yes. And okay, the next one is بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانُ لِيَفْجُرَ أَمَامَهُ. I've translated this as yet they want to wreck what is in front of them. What that really is, yet, you know, he disobeys, you know, his Lord openly. Yet he disobeys his Lord openly. Malik Nafur? Is that better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than Afsa?
Yafjura from Fajr.
That's right, to disobedience and to break the rules. You know, he openly, amamahu, in front of the Lord, you know, without any shame. You know, he is willing to, and he does that. So I don't know how I was actually in I was in Cairo. I especially went to spend a month in Cairo to do this 29th and 30th Spara translation. I was living by myself but I had three other scholars actually helping me. I just thought it would be good to spend some time back in my own college as well as with some scholars there. And I don't know how I got this wrecked here.
Well, where's the connection between the word wreck and yafjura? Is there a connection between wreck and yafjura?
Fajr is explode.
Yes. You know, Fajr is actually the breaking of the dawn. The breaking of the dawn. But I can't actually, I just can't understand why I did that wreck. Yes. I just cannot understand for a moment why because
This is from fisk and fajur, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Disobedience and indecency. He wants to continue forever disobedient and indecent the rest of his life.
But this is in front of them, is not in front of him. This is actually in front of Allah. Amamahu should be actually. So I just can't understand why it just went berserk by this one. So inshallah, those of you who are buying this particular edition, you better correct this. But inshallah, in the revision which we are publishing in January, I've got nearly 2,000 improvements. MashaAllah. There are mostly improvements, on the existing, and to make it even more plainer. Okay. And they jokingly ask, jokingly is in Furqan is in italics. Okay, it's in italics because I've just added that. It's not there, but I think they were joking. Let's be honest. They weren't being serious with the Prophet, were they? When they were asking, for example, Abu Jahl bringing this dead bone, and he was joking, So that's why I put
mocking.
Mockingly, yeah? Mockingly or joking? Okay, mockingly, yeah? Okay, mockingly would be better, yeah? Okay. And I mean, this was something which they kept on asking again and again, yeah? No? When will Ayyana Yawmul Qiyamah, when will it happen? And I just want you to just read the next divine speech. I mean, that's what it is really. The speech is like this. When it comes, eyes will be dazzled, the moon eclipsed, the sun and the moon will appear to be joined together, and people will ask that day, where can we flee to? No, there is no safe place. That day you will be brought before your Lord. People will learn what they achieve and what they fail to do. Again here, I put people, this is normally translated as, I'm talking here about the يُنَبَّأُ الْإِنسَانُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِمَا قَدَّمَ وَأَخَّرَ. Okay? People will learn that day what they achieved and what they failed to do. Normally that's translated as بِمَا قَدَّمَ, what people have sent ahead and what they have left behind. And that's what you'll find in most translations. I've gone for more operative and functional translation, which is what they achieved and what they failed to achieve. That's far more, that day, the only thing you will be worried about is, what have I brought with me? Have I got anything in my pocket today to be able to present to Allah, to get into Jannah? Did you see that?
We talked about yesterday regarding Tijara.
That's right, yes.
Tijara.
Yes, so this is in a way, yes. Yeah, this is connected with the idea of that transaction as well. So, I hope you can see, rather than using what they sent forth and what they left behind, which would be, I don't think it's very idiomatically right either. So that's why I went for that. And they will have evidence against themselves. There will be evidence against themselves. But what will they still do? You will still make excuses, okay? Yet, we are told, we were reading in Surah Yasin this morning, the limbs will testify. They will bear witness. They will speak out, okay? But despite listening to that, people will still make excuses, eh? And then the skin will speak. Everything will speak and say, evidence that you did do this wrong. You were wrong. You were totally wrong. Eh? Do you see that? This is amazing. And yet, what will they do? They will still just try to make excuses. The main excuses really will be, those are mentioned in the Quran in several places, is where they will argue with their chiefs and nobles and their big people. They will say to them, you told us to do this. You told us to do this. And of course they will have an argument. No, well, we didn't. We just were recommending, we were just talking and you just followed us. Or they will argue with the shaitan as well. And the shaitan will say, well, no, I didn't really start it. You initiated it and I just sort of further flamed it, fanned it. Okay? I didn't, you were the ones who wanted to do this. I just encouraged you. And so on. So he will try to get out of it as well. I hope you can see, how powerful that speech is of the Quran itself. But there are a few things the Quran mentions about how the Day of Judgment will happen. It talks about this idea that there will be an eclipse of the moon. Okay? This is a Jum'a ash-Shamsu wal-Qamar. That's the eclipse. Of course, when the sun, the moon, and the earth are in a straight line, that's of course known as what? The birth of the moon, conjunction. Okay? But when the three are in exactly the same plane, then what happens? That's when you get the eclipse. So the difference between an eclipse and normal conjunction is that the moon need not be in the same plane. Alright? or the earth, or the sun. The three are slightly going up and down, all right? They're never in the same plane. They're only in the same plane when there is a eclipse, okay? So, in other words, there is this up, down, so there's three variations, and that's why, and of course you can predict, or the astronomers can predict when they're going to be in the same plane, and that's how they predict the next eclipse then. So here we're actually told when the Day of Judgment will be, and what else will happen on that day? Okay, and then people will try to run away, but of course there's no escape. I think this again, people will run away. Is it really physically they will try to run away? Possibly, but if it's a metaphor for it, then what it's saying is, it will be a very desperate situation, really. It will be a very desperate situation. Okay. Who would like to read, Jana? Abdul Rahman?
Yeah.
Waking up? Are you awake enough?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Ah, mashallah. Good. I know Abdul Rahman, you are. Good. Come on.
We're 18.
G. No, the 16, the preservation of the
title first.
Yeah.
Preservation of the Quran is the concern of Allah. Messenger, don't read the Quran too fast to memorize it. We are responsible for its compilation and recital. So when we recite it and follow its recitation, it is also our responsibility to explain it clearly to you. Shall I carry on?
No, that's fine. I think that's the end of that short section. I'll just tell you, the philosophy of my translation and making these sections. It's to group together verses and try to understand this subject matter of it, and the line of argument or any particular position that's being presented, the view that's being given there. So that I'm trying to search for that and then give that as a heading. So these three verses, I just thought were trying to is a different theme now, isn't it, from the Day of Judgment, from the previous. Can you see the difference, Usman? Clear, isn't it? It's very clear that here something else is now being talked about. That subject is finished about the Day of Judgment. Now it's about the Quran, isn't it? The Prophet ﷺ's hurry and hurriedness to learn. So when Jibreel recited, Rasulullah ﷺ used to recite quickly after him and repeat it several times in order to memorize it, okay? And Allah is here saying to him, no, you don't need to do that. لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. Don't hurry about it. Nothing to hurry about it. إن علينا جمعه. It's our responsibility to compile it and to make sure that it is properly read as well. That's our responsibility. G.
In Arabic, it doesn't say recite, does it?
It does.
Qur'anahu.
Qur'anahu. No, Qur'anahu. Qur'anahu is the recitation. Yeah, Qur'an is the, so when we recite it, then follow its recitation. Okay? Follow the recitation actually. Follow its recitation and inna alayna bayanahu. And it is also our responsibility to clearly explain it. Now this already is telling us something about the Quran itself. It is actually clear. The Quran is, the bayan, it is clear already. And as I said, this is a very short section, but I just thought it's in many ways it's like a parenthesis, bracket, isn't it? Now let's go to the next one, Jana. The Quran was talking about the Day of Judgment, okay, and people's denial of it, okay, and making excuses for their wrongness. Yes, Habib?
The other title of the preservation of the Quran, something came to my mind that I'm probably aware that at Birmingham University, I think it was 2 years ago, in the archives, they found some pages which they sent to Oxford and carbon dated, and they confirmed through their amazing different exhibition on it as well.
Okay, that's. Do you remember 2 years ago, the University of Birmingham, in one of its libraries, found a page of a Quran that when they dated it back, it dates back to the time of Sayyidina Usman radiallahu ta'ala. Okay. And that's a very accurate carbon dating. Right? It's very accurate carbon dating. And it was from the 15th Sparah. I can't remember which particular verse, but I remember reading it there. And of course, it's exactly as it is today. And that, of course, was for us, nothing surprising or strange about it. We know that. The Quran is preserved, we believe in that. But there's a solid evidence here of how the Quran has been preserved. And you see, these Orientalists, they've been saying, oh, this has been added, that's been added, and you see, well, there's a whole page there which is 1400 years old, and it is exactly as it is today. Right? Good, yeah, that's. Okay, let's go back to verse 20. Okay, verse 20. It's on the next page. وَتَضَرُونَ الْآخِرَةِ وُجُوهٍ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ. Want to read? Love of the world.
Love of the world makes people forget the hereafter. You love the fleeting world and dislike the hereafter. That day some faces will be radiant, happily watching their Lord. That day other faces will be gloomy and grave, sensing the occurrence of the back-breaking calamity. Nay, when the soul reaches the breastbone, it will be said, where the charming doctor who can heal? He will know it's time to leave. The legs will be straightened and brought together. Then that day, he will be driven towards your Lord.
Yeah, where's that charming doctor, eh? See that, that's in italics. I just added that. You might not be critical of that. Now, can you see what I meant by the brackets? This is now going back to the Qiyamah, isn't it? You know, it ended there by people making excuses. They were making excuses that, oh, it was because of this, all right? Now the Quran goes back to that same theme. And in middle, what we have those 3 verses which I call them digression. You can call it parentheses or brackets, whatever you want to call it. But it went to the tangent. But we'll try to understand why it went to the tangent. But let's look at this now. It goes back to the Qiyamah again. And they are making excuses. And the Quran is commenting on their excuses. They were making, oh, it's because of this, because of that. And what does Allah say? Well, no, let's be honest. It was because you loved the fleeting world. Eh? Let's be honest about it. You loved it, okay? You desired it, you wanted it, okay? Don't try to kid yourself now or kid anybody. You loved it, yeah, no? So this is effectively a commentary on their behavior on the Day of Judgment, all right? And you disliked the Akhirah. You didn't want to even think about death and what happens after that. It was out of your, and again, in our society, we seldom talk about death, okay? We like having people shot and killed. We like seeing that, but we don't talk about death, you know, and what happens after it, something. Then Allah describes that day some faces will be radiant, happily watching their Lord, okay? You know, they will be the fortunate ones who will be able to see the Lord. That day, other faces will be gloomy and grey, sensing the occurrence of a back-breaking calamity. Back-breaking calamity, meaning, you know, something awful, terrible is going to happen. That's what it is really. Something, yes, something that is going to be, actually, it's an yuf'ala biha faqira. You know, something that's going to really break their back. what's another word? Anybody like to help me here? How else would you be able to put this? Sensing the occurrence of a back-breaking calamity. It's a very complicated. I'm not too happy with that. Anybody? Tazunno, thinking that a back-breaking calamity will, something nasty, something bad will happen to them. Pending doom. Okay. Yes. Yes. They are sensing a pending doom. Yes. I mean, it really. But it's got to have the idea of, in Arabic, fakira is breaking the back. All right. So you've got to have something which is. I have to put that in to make the translation. But anyway, if anybody can come up with if there's an English idiom which reflects this kind of meaning, let me know there. Okay? But I hope you can see the challenges of translating the Quran. All right? And of course, nay, when the soul reaches the breastbone, it will be said, where is the charming doctor who can heal? I say, as you can see, that is something I've added. What I was trying to understand there is, the soul reaches the breastbone. What that means is the soul is coming out. Okay, the soul is about to leave the body. And the dying person senses that. He knows he's dying, all right? Okay? So, but there is the people standing around. Where is the doctor? Who can heal? Who can save? I mean, the idea of me putting this, where is the charming doctor who can heal, is really about this desire of this dying person wanting to be still healed. Okay, he thinks he could be, right? But that's an impossibility now at this stage. And what happens then? The legs are straightened. I mean, this is everybody does that. As soon as somebody dies, people who are experienced will immediately straighten them before the rigor mortis sets in. Is that right, Dr. Sal? How long does it take for the rigor mortis? Is it
4 to 6 hours.
How many?
4 to 6 hours.
4 to 6 hours. Okay. But what people do is they straighten the legs immediately. But again, people are getting ready to straighten his legs, and yet there is him hoping that he would be healed. Yes.
What's rigor mortis?
Rigor mortis? Ask Dr.
It's the contraction of the body after death. The body starts to contract. You can't reverse that.
Okay. And what will be said to him? Gigi.
Charming.
Yes.
Charming meaning graceful, like soothsayer, witchcraft. The word Rami kind of suggests soothsayer.
That's right. Yes.
And in English, I think there's ambiguity, because charming means graceful, elegant person.
Yeah.
Charming, not like. But I think what's meant to be is somebody who can do witch charms,
Yes.
soothsaying, and so on. So maybe I think that could, in comedy marketing, when you say charming person, you don't mean you're not applying any witchcraft or you the most expert, somebody who can do the impossible. Do that. Somebody who can perform a miracle.
So the expert.
Yeah, expert, that's right. Yeah, so the little charm.
Yes.
This is what you're in
That's
idiomatic English. Charming is somebody who's just elegant and
Yes.
graceful. So there's this ambiguity. You can really.
Okay, good. I think you're right, Anna. It was the enchanting, rather than using the enchanting, that would be again, yeah. Yes. Yeah, you're right.
On Arabic, they'd be saying, pull the ball with some, pull someone who can do some.
Yes. Yeah. But he will know it's time to leave. Okay. I hope you can see, how the Quran does very obviously digress, as we saw, in the last 3 verses from 16 to 19, how it digressed to a tangent. But what is the relationship between that digression and how do you explain that? Anybody help me with that? How would we explain this little digression? It was talking about the horrors of the Day of Judgment, people making excuses, and then it comes back to Allah now saying, well, it's no good making excuses. Be honest about it. You love the world and everything else, and what happens, it then continues the theme again. Isn't that right? It's continuing the theme of the Day of Judgment, isn't it? And death. But why this little digression of, anybody think why that could be? About the Quran. It's about the Quran, isn't it? No? Or could be the relationship there? That, Allah says, Messenger, don't read the Quran too fast to memorize it. We are responsible for its compilation and recital. So when we recite it, then follow it with recitation. It's also our responsibility to explain it clearly to you.
It's highlighting the importance, and plus also Muhammad was, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam knew he's going to die, eventually pass away, so he was hurrying up. Maybe that's why it's there.
Okay.
Perhaps it's to do with that kalam not being subject to what everything the rest of creation will be subject to, that's ever living, whereby we are in a momentary phase, we're passing away. However, this kalam is dying and it will last forever.
Good, and that's a very good idea. That it's talking about the material world coming to end, and of course the Quran is not makhluk. That was a very big aqidah, and the Quran is actually Allah's kalam, it is the speech of Allah, therefore eternal. Alright? And yeah, there's that. Here we are talking about material world. This world, okay? The material world. And the Quran in some ways is the bridge between the material world and the spiritual world. Isn't it? So that might be so it's a bridge between the material world and the world of the ruh and the world of the spirit.
Just to build on that point, if you look at the Arabic, it says, La tuharrik hastiness. The word for dunya is ajila.
That's right, and then the Quran mentions that, isn't it?
Obviously, you just picked it up, but in the word for dunya in the Quran is ajila, is fleeting. So that's a quick movement, And the link there is ajala, being hasty, wanting to quickly, and so on. That's quite a intertextual connection.
Yes.
We use the word ajala for the world and ajala for the Quran.
Did you get that, everybody? The ajila. Say that, ajila. It's a glottal sound, throaty sound. Ajila. Say that. Not ajila. Ajila. No. Ike ajila. Ajila means that which is fixed. Okay? And ajila, which is quick and fleeting. Alright? But this is ajila and ajala, which is the Prophet ﷺ doing it hastily. Okay? And the word is called ajila, haste. It's fleeting, transient, temporary actually. And that's again, as Afsal points out, that might be the other link between this bracket, this parenthesis. And even there, what I wanted to, I hope you can see, even there's a connection, word connection as well. Okay. The final section is who would like to? One of the sisters there, Falak. Can you read that one, please? Allah will resurrect.
He didn't believe or pray. Instead, he denied and turned his back. Walked arrogantly amidst his people, yet the hereafter is drawing closer and closer to you, and even more and more closer to you. Do people think they aren't answerable to Allah? Weren't they a drop of emitted semen? There is a germ cell that Allah created and perfected. Then He made from it the pair, the male and the female. Isn't He the one who did that? So isn't He capable of bringing life to them?
again, talking about Allah's power to resurrect, bring back to life. Okay, and it gives a logical evidence, a rational. There's a reasoning there, isn't there? فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى. He didn't believe, nor did he ever pray. وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. But he turned and denied. He walked arrogantly amid his people. Yet the hereafter is drawing closer and closer. And even more and more closer to you. Okay. Do people think they are answerable to Allah? So, this denial of and forgetfulness of Allah. And again, weren't they a drop of emitted semen, then a germ cell that Allah created and perfected? Talking about the origin of human beings. So what is the problem? Why can't he recreate? Why can't he restore that again, Jannah? Okay. So isn't he capable of bringing life to dead? أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. And again, it began with لَا أُقْسِمُ بِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Okay. Swearing by the day of judgment, the day of resurrection. Okay. And here, asking the question, of course, he's capable of resurrecting. It seems as though the last verse is almost an answer to the first verse there as well. Okay, as it's a nice short surah, and if you were to read this by yourself, I hope you will begin to now understand something of how I've presented the translation and how you can actually read the whole surah in one go, in no more than, I think, 3-4 minutes. And when you read it like this, under those different 4 sections, you will begin to see the relationship and how coherent it is. Is that right? Okay. Can I just take you back to the, the page, the Arabic page? What's in the margins? Can you read that? What's in the margins?
The day of resurrection is presented and Allah is the judge. It's imminent, so stop postponing it.
These are thoughts that I had about the page. Okay, I put them there. Sometimes I ask questions. Sometimes I just sort of summarize it. Whatever came to my mind after reading that page, I just put it there to make you reflect. Okay, so that's a point of reflection. It's a sidelight. Okay, in some instances, you know what a sidelight? Car sidelight. Hopefully changing the direction. I was actually going to put that, but I was advised by my designer that it doesn't look nice. Put side light. This is a side light. Okay, this should be changing your direction after reading this. All right, but I hope it implies that. Okay, and the next page has I got another small one. What's that?
Fool thinks he will stay here forever.
The fool
thinks he will stay here forever.
Yes. Again, very terse and brief, but I hope it's almost, there is something there, isn't there, from there. أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. He thinks he will stay there forever.
6 times insana.
Mentioned 6, mashallah.
Yeah.
Okay, insan is, Brother Haji Mazhar has counted that insan is mentioned 6 times.
Yes,
Can anybody back him up? Who's counted it? Yes.
That's a very interesting point, and that feeds into the next surah after Islam,
SubhanAllah. Which has
foreshadows.
That's right, yeah. The next surah is actually Surah Al-Dahr. Surah Al-Dahr.
It's also known as Al-Insan.
That's right. I think, in my title, in the contents page, we wrote Al-Insan, and then, I don't know why we put Dahr here. Yes. Yes, that's very good, Jana. Al-Insan, I translated that not as man, I think it's a mistake. If I have that's a mistake, it's always people.
People. Yeah.
Because it's not mankind, as all translations do. That's wrong, Jen. It's not mankind. Mankind is not gender neutral. Okay. So I've gone from people most of the time. Anything else?